This is the Omnichord OM-300, and this one doesn't work. No sound, makes no sound whatsoever. As I put it in demo mode, well, the light comes on, so some of the logic functions are working. Push the buttons in the lights. Okay, so that's a good sign. It's just there's no output. So we're going to find out what's wrong with this. So here's the back of the unit with the cover taken off, the back cover. And I got 12 volts applied to it. First things I want to check is the amplifier. That is the amplifier chip. And just touch the top of that capacitor. And I get a buzz. Capacitor C6, it's that one. That's the input capacitor. So there's a quick check to see if the amp is working. We still have no audio, but the amp section is working. Here's the preamp, an LM4558 U5. This is the digital to analog converter chip, and that is U4. And over here in this corner, this is the 12 to 5 volt regulator. So this is now working, and we'll test it. I fixed the problem and push the demo button. Works fine. So the problem ended up being D3. But D3 was virtually open, and that caused 5 volts in the circuit to be irregular. So this is the partial schematic. One wasn't available, so I actually had to trace this out. But this is the part of the circuit that we'll be concerned with. What happened was, like this diode had opened up. Here's the distribution diodes. They split off the load to the rest of the circuits. So using isolation diodes, that'll drop the voltage down like about 600 millivolts or so. So what they do to make up for it is use this D3, that's usually around 650 millivolts there, and that picks this regulator up to like 5.6 or 5.7 volts so that it'll compensate for the drop across these two isolation diodes. Here's a D to A converter, and that's U4. There's one bypass capacitor. Then we got a voltage reference. It's pin 3. And that will set the bias output for this line into this op-amp. So that, in this case, should be around, what, 2.5 volts. I got 2.4 because that's what I measured. The problem I noticed right off the bat was that R42 was pretty hot. That's a 47 ohm. Was caused by this capacitor being shorted. Well, this capacitor here is 6.3 volts. When this diode had opened up, which this voltage went up to about 8 volts, which set this voltage rail at like 7.5 volts. So here, this was still working. This capacitor being 6.3 volts, eventually it started shorting out. So the voltage reference here went to about 0, which made this output go to 0, which caused this op-amp to not work. Once I replaced that diode, all these voltages came back to 5 volts. I replaced this capacitor because it was shorted, because it overvoltage. And this resistor, it was still 47 ohms, so I did not change that out. It was alright. So that's the new capacitor now that I changed out. If there is any doubt, I would suggest replacing all these capacitors. Electrolytics do go bad. So I got it put back together. We turn on the power to do the demo mode. Okay, so that works.